The old house on the outskirts of town stood silent and foreboding, its weathered exterior barely holding on to its former grandeur. Ivy snaked its way up the cracked walls, and the windows, caked with grime, seemed to peer out with a sinister glint. But it was the attic that held the darkest secrets, a place where something stirred in the shadows, something that was not of this world. The rumors had circulated for years among the locals, tales of strange noises emanating from the attic in the dead of night, of whispers carried on the wind, and of eerie lights flickering through the darkness. Some said it was haunted by the spirits of those who had met their untimely demise within its walls. Others whispered of a malevolent entity that lurked in the shadows, biding its time, waiting for unsuspecting victims to cross its path. Ethan, a curious young man with a penchant for adventure, had heard these stories too, but he dismissed them as nothing more than the fanciful imaginings of a superstitious community. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of bravado, he decided to investigate the attic for himself one fateful night. As he ascended the creaking stairs leading to the attic, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled like a heavy shroud over his shoulders. The air grew colder with each step, and a sense of dread gnawed at his insides. But he pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysteries of the old house. Pushing open the door to the attic, Ethan's flashlight pierced the darkness, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. At first, all he could see were dusty relics of the past, old furniture covered in tattered sheets, boxes stacked haphazardly in the corners, and cobwebs clinging to every surface. But then he heard it, a faint shuffling sound coming from the far corner of the room. His heart pounding in his chest, Ethan cautiously made his way towards the source of the noise, his flashlight trembling in his grasp. And then he saw it, a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him from the darkness, filled with an otherworldly intelligence that sent chills down his spine. Before he could react, a creature unlike anything he had ever seen emerged from the shadows. It was humanoid in shape, but its skin was pale and translucent, stretched taut over its skeletal frame. Its eyes burned with a hunger that sent a primal instinct for survival coursing through Ethan's veins. Paralyzed with fear, Ethan could only watch as the creature approached, its movements sinuous and predatory. With each step, its form seemed to blur and shift, as if it were not entirely solid, but rather a manifestation of the darkness itself. And then, with a guttural growl that reverberated through the attic, the creature lunged forward, its razor-sharp claws outstretched towards Ethan's throat. In that moment of terror, Ethan realized the horrifying truth. The attic was not haunted by ghosts or spirits, but by something far more sinister and insidious. And as the creature closed in for the kill, he knew that he would never escape the clutches of the living nightmare that lurked within the shadows of the old house. The creature's foul breath washed over Ethan, carrying with it the stench of decay and despair. With a surge of adrenaline, he managed to dodge its initial attack, stumbling backward and crashing into a pile of forgotten belongings. Frantically, he scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest like a drumbeat of impending doom. Desperation fueled his movements as he searched for a way out, but the attic seemed to twist and warp around him, shifting and changing as if to trap him within its grasp. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows stretching and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to mock his futile attempts to escape. With nowhere left to run, Ethan faced the creature head-on, his hands shaking as he reached for anything that could serve as a weapon. But as he turned to confront his assailant, he found himself face to face with something even more horrifying than he could have imagined. Reflected in the dim light of his flashlight, he saw not one, but dozens of the creatures emerging from the darkness, their eyes gleaming with an insatiable hunger. They moved with a coordinated precision, encircling him like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. Paralyzed with fear, Ethan could only watch as the creatures advanced, their unearthly forms undulating and shifting with each step. He could feel their malevolent gaze boring into his soul, stripping away the last vestiges of his courage and leaving him trembling with dread. And then, just as all hope seemed lost, a sudden flash of inspiration struck Ethan like a bolt of lightning. With a desperate cry, he hurled his flashlight into the midst of the creatures, the beam of light cutting through the darkness like a beacon of salvation. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as the creatures recoiled from the blinding glare, their unearthly cries echoing through the attic like a chorus of tortured souls. Seizing the opportunity, Ethan darted past them, his heart pounding in his chest as he made a desperate dash for the attic door. With one final burst of strength, he flung open the door and stumbled out into the cool night air, his lungs burning with exertion as he collapsed onto the ground below. As he lay there, gasping for breath, he knew that he had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. But even as he lay there, shaken and battered, he couldn't shake the feeling that the horrors of the attic were far from over. For deep within the shadows of the old house, something malevolent and ancient stirred, biding its time until the next unsuspecting victim wandered into its lair. And as Ethan looked up at the looming silhouette of the house against the night sky, he knew that he would never truly be free from the darkness that lurked within. In the days that followed his harrowing encounter, Ethan tried to convince himself that it was just a nightmare, a trick of his imagination brought on by the eerie atmosphere of the old house. But the memory of those glowing eyes and the chilling growl of the creature haunted his every waking moment, a constant reminder that the horrors of the attic were all too real. Sleep became an elusive luxury as Ethan found himself plagued by terrifying dreams of being pursued through the darkness by unseen forces. Every creak of the floorboards and every whisper of the wind seemed to echo with the echoes of that fateful night, sending shivers down his spine and eroding his sanity with each passing day. Determined to put an end to the nightmare once and for all, Ethan returned to the old house, his heart heavy with dread, but his resolve unwavering. Armed with whatever makeshift weapons he could find, he ascended the stairs to the attic once more, determined to confront the darkness that lurked within. But as he reached the top of the stairs and pushed open the door to the attic, he was met with a sight that filled him with dread. The room lay empty, devoid of any sign of the creatures that had terrorized him just days before. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. Confused and disoriented, Ethan cautiously stepped into the attic, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. But as he searched the shadows for any trace of the creatures, he found nothing but dust and decay, the remnants of a bygone era that seemed to mock his fears. Just as he was about to turn and leave the attic behind for good, Ethan's flashlight flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness once more. Panic clawed at his chest as he fumbled for his backup light, but before he could find it, a voice spoke out from the shadows, sending a chill down his spine. "Welcome back, Ethan," it whispered, its tone dripping with malice. "We've been expecting you." With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Ethan realized that the nightmare was far from over. For in the darkness of the attic, something sinister and ancient still lurked, waiting to claim him as its next victim. And as the shadows closed in around him, he knew that he would never escape the horrors that awaited him in the depths of the old house. As Ethan stood frozen in terror, the voice seemed to emanate from all around him, echoing off the walls of the attic with a chilling resonance that sent shivers down his spine. He couldn't see who or what was speaking, but he could feel its presence looming over him like a dark cloud. Summoning every ounce of courage he had left, Ethan managed to stammer out a response, his voice trembling with fear. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" A low, sinister chuckle echoed through the darkness, sending a chill down Ethan's spine. "We are the guardians of this house," the voice replied, dripping with menace. "And you are an intruder in our domain." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the gravity of his situation. He had stumbled into something far beyond his comprehension, something ancient and malevolent that had claimed the attic as its own. But he refused to go down without a fight. With a newfound determination, Ethan groped blindly for his flashlight, his fingers closing around its familiar shape. With a click, he managed to coax it back to life, the beam of light piercing the darkness with its brilliant glow. As the light spread through the attic, Ethan caught a glimpse of movement in the shadows, a flicker of movement, like the ghostly silhouette of a figure darting out of sight. His heart raced as he realized that he was not alone in the attic, that there were others lurking in the darkness, watching his every move. Summoning his courage, Ethan took a step forward, his flashlight held aloft like a beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness. "Show yourself," he demanded, his voice trembling but firm. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the soft rustle of the wind outside. And then, with a suddenness that made Ethan's blood run cold, the shadows seemed to coalesce into a tangible form, a figure draped in darkness, its features obscured by a shroud of blackness. "We are the guardians of this house," the figure intoned, its voice a sinister whisper that seemed to reverberate through the very air itself. "And you are not welcome here." But Ethan refused to back down. With a defiant cry, he charged forward, his flashlight held high as he plunged into the heart of the darkness. The figure recoiled, its form wavering and shifting as if struggling to maintain its hold on reality. With each step, Ethan felt a surge of exhilaration coursing through his veins, his fear giving way to a sense of righteous fury. He would not be cowed by the darkness, nor would he allow himself to be claimed by the horrors that lurked within the attic. And then, just as victory seemed within his grasp, the figure melted away into the shadows, leaving Ethan standing alone in the darkness once more. But this time, he felt a glimmer of hope flickering within him, a spark of courage that refused to be extinguished. For Ethan had faced the darkness head-on and emerged victorious, proving that even in the face of unimaginable terror, there was still light to be found. And as he made his way out of the attic and into the cool night air, he knew that he would carry that light with him wherever he went, a beacon of hope in a world consumed by darkness. As Ethan descended the creaking stairs, he couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness of the attic had left its mark on him, seeping into his very soul like a stain that could never be washed away. But despite the lingering sense of unease, he felt a newfound sense of strength coursing through his veins, a resilience born from confronting his deepest fears and emerging victorious. As he stepped out into the moonlit night, Ethan cast one final glance back at the old house, its silhouette looming against the sky like a sentinel guarding its secrets. Though the attic may have been home to unspeakable horrors, it had also been the proving ground where Ethan had discovered his own inner strength, a strength that would carry him through whatever trials lay ahead. With a sense of determination burning in his heart, Ethan turned away from the old house and set off into the night, ready to face whatever darkness awaited him with courage and conviction. For he knew that no matter how terrifying the journey might be, he would never again be afraid to confront the shadows that lurked within. And as he disappeared into the darkness, the echoes of his footsteps fading into the night, the old house stood silent and still, its secrets buried deep within its walls, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to stumble upon its haunted halls.
Like, subscribe, and click on notifications that will allow you to stay up to date with the news and not miss videos from the channel, where there will be many more horror stories.